Hello and welcome back to the Workbench. This is where we discuss ceiling fan history, trivia, and technical information. Today we're going to talk about Feiss. Many of you are probably familiar with Feiss ceiling fans and lighting. This video started... Oh shit, I got the fan in the background. Hello and welcome back to the Workbench. This is where we discuss me sitting up and sitting down. Hello and welcome back to the Workbench. This is where we discuss ceiling fan history, trivia, and technical information. Today we're going to talk about Feiss. And like a lot of these videos, they started by, not they. Hello and welcome back to the Workbench. This is where we discuss ceiling fan history, trivia, and technical information. Today we're going to talk about Feiss. A lot of you guys are probably familiar with Feiss ceiling fan Feiss. Hello and welcome back to the Workbench. This is where we discuss ceiling fan history, trivia, and technical information. Today we're going to talk about Feiss. A lot of you guys are probably familiar with Feiss ceiling fans and lighting. As with a lot of these videos, it started by trying to answer a simple question. Who had the first footprint vents? Who came up with this design? So, let's get into Feiss. Feiss was founded in 1955 when Feiss himself started selling small porcelain figurine lamps topped with shades his mother sewed by hand. In 1981 is when they decided to get into the ceiling fan business, obviously. You know what, I'll start over. Hello and welcome back to the Workbench. This is where we discuss ceiling fan history, trivia, and technical information. Today we're going to talk about Feiss. Many of you are probably familiar with Feiss's ceiling fans and lighting products. This video, like many of the videos in this series, started by trying to answer a simple question. Who came up with footprint vents? Who came up with this style of vents? How did these... Hello and welcome back to the Workbench. This is where we discuss ceiling fan history, trivia, and technical information. Today we're going to talk about Feiss. Feiss is one of the biggest manufacturers of... Hello and welcome back to the Workbench. This is where we discuss ceiling fan history and me clearing my throat. Hello and welcome back to the Workbench. This is where we discuss ceiling fan history, trivia, and technical information. Today we're going to talk about Feiss. Many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with Feiss's ceiling fans and their lighting designs. They're a huge manufacturer of lighting, very popular. This video started, like many of the videos in this channel, with trying to research one simple question. Who came up with footprint vents? Where did this style of vents in ceiling fans originate? And that takes us back to 1955, or technically before 1955. Rose Feiss was an immigrant who sold... Hello and welcome back to the Workbench. This is where we discuss ceiling fan history, trivia, and technical information. Today we're going to talk about Feiss. Many of you, I'm sure, are... Hello and welcome back to the Workbench. This is where we discuss ceiling fan history, trivia, and technical information. Today we're going to talk about Feiss. I'm sure many of you are familiar with their ceiling fans, with their lighting designs. They're a very popular company of lamps and lighting. This video, like many of the videos on this channel, started by trying to research... Hello and welcome back to the Workbench. This is where we discuss ceiling fan history, trivia, and technical information. Today we're going to talk about Feiss. You may be familiar with their ceiling fans, with their lighting. They're a very popular brand of lighting and lamps. This video started, like many of the videos in this series, with trying to research a simple question. Who came up with what we call footprint vents in ceiling fans? Where did this style of vents originate? And that story takes us back to World War II, when an immigrant woman named Rose Feiss was sewing lampshades as a side business. Her son was in the Navy, came back and got a marketing degree, and founded his own company selling porcelain lamps with his mom's shades in 1955. That company was Feiss. That was the name of the son. By 1980, they were one of the biggest manufacturers of lamps and lighting in the world, and in 1981, they decided to go into ceiling fans. Now, by 1980, they are already importing lamps and lighting from overseas, so it makes it very easy to start importing fans. And the first fans they import are cane-bladed GE vent bell canopy fans, most likely from the Chow Electric Company. In 1982, Feiss fans now have the definitive footprint vents. They also offer a vented spinner. and the fans now have the small canopy that we've come to associate with Winco. I attempted to research the origins of who actually made these fans. The closest I could get is that it was probably CEC, because CEC was their earliest supplier. However, the question, where did the design come from? Murray Feiss by 1982 had a team of designers that designed fan parts, mostly faceplates, to match their lighting lines. And footprint vents was actually a design that was on one of their lamp and or lighting designs that they wanted to be able to match their ceiling fans. So their head designer came up with this, which looks like a footprint. And that's what fan collectors call it to this day. So that was 1982. There's also an interesting story from 1982. When Murray Feiss was relatively new in the fan business, they sent an employee to live in Hong Kong during the production cycle to be on top of quality control. That employee got very lonesome during the months he was there and came home knowing every Chinese curse word. Okay, let's go to 1983. Murray Feiss introduces Huggers with the footprint vent design. They now have the footprint vent fan with the smaller canopy, like the Toastmastery canopy that I think we associate with early Murray Feiss fans. They still have the vented spinner that looks kind of like a Toastmaster vented spinner. In 1984, Murray Feiss fans show up with a ball socket mount. They now have an ornate and cane fan similar to Codep. I talked in the Menards video about how I always associate this design with Codep. There's a wood housing and or ornate housing fan that's got the face plates and then the fancy sideband and the kind of badge style blade arms, arch tips. If you're not familiar with it, I'll point it out. But Murray Feiss also sold a fan very similar to that. That was 1984. 1984 is also the first year that they do a 5-blade hugger. In 1985, the 5-blade footprint vent fans are now called the Tradewinds. In 1986, they are selling a lot of different fans with cane blades and footprint vent fans. Oh, I gotta start over. Hello and welcome back to the Workbench. Today we're going to talk about Murray Feiss. You may be familiar with Murray Feiss's ceiling fan or their lamps and lighting. They are a very big manufacturer of lamps and light. Hello and welcome back to the Workbench. Today we're going to talk about Murray Feiss. You may be familiar with their ceiling fans or you may be familiar with their lamps and lighting. They are a very big manufacturer of lamps and lighting. Very, very popular. I don't know. Hello and welcome back to the Workbench. Hello and welcome back to the Workbench. This is where we discuss ceiling fan history, trivia, and technical information. Today we're going to talk about Murray Feiss. Murray Feiss is a huge, very popular company of lamps and lighting. They also had quite a run of ceiling fans. Let's learn about them. So, our story takes us back to 1955, when a young Murray Feiss started selling small porcelain figurine lamps topped with shades his mother sewed by hand. Fast forward to 1980, and they are one of the biggest manufacturers of lamps and lighting in the world. And in 1981, they decide to go into fans. Murray Feiss's entrance into fans was easy because they were already importing lighting. One of their early suppliers, and the only early supplier that I could find evidence of, was CEC, Chow Electric Company. The first Murray Feiss fans show up in 1981. They are cane GE Vent Bell Canopy fans. In 1982, Murray Feiss introduces the recognizable footprint vent design on the bottom of fans. We call them footprint vents because they look like a footprint, but actually they were designed to match one of their lighting lines. Murray Feiss had a team of designers that designed fan parts, mostly faceplates, to match their various lighting styles. Footprint vents was one of them. It came from their head designer at the time. So, Murray Feiss was in fact the first company to do footprint vents. It was their design. And the early footprint vents fans that we find are most likely Murray Feiss. When Murray Feiss was relatively new in the fan business, they sent an employee to live in Hong Kong during the production cycle to be on top of quality control. That employee got very lonesome during the months he was there and came home knowing every Chinese curse word. Okay, so that is 1982, and in 1982 they're selling footprint vent fans with what we would refer to as the Winco canopy, the kind of flat canopy like early Casablanca fans used. They're also selling vented spinners. As far as we know, their early supplier then was still the Chow Electric Company. Later on, their big suppliers became Halsey and King of Fans, but their early Hong Kong fans were from Chow. Okay, that's 1982. 1983, footprint vent hugger fans shown up. The footprint vent fans with the smaller kind of Toastmastery bell canopy show up, and they are still selling vented spinners. In 1984, Murray Feiss ceiling fans now have ball socket mounting. They now introduce an ornate cane-bladed fan. I refer to these as kind of a Kodepi style. They're the ones that have like the ornate faceplates, the kind of patterned sideband where it's ornate here, not ornate here, the badge style blade irons. There's a wood housing version. There's an ornate version. I've seen them labeled Kodep. I've seen them labeled Evermuster. That style, they have one of those. And that is 1984. It's also the first year of the 5-blade footprint vent Murray Feiss hugger, 1984. In 1985, they introduce a 5-blade footprint vent fan called the Tradewinds. That becomes kind of their signature fan for a while. In 1986, they're offering a lot of different fans with footprint vents and cane. They're also offering some GE vent fans as well. And in 1986, they introduced the High-Tech, a 4-blade ventless fan with spotlights and a black sideband. You may remember, Menards introduced the High-Tech, a similar fan, later in the 80s, which is a ventless fan with spotlights, but theirs is later, theirs is 5-blade. I believe Murray Feiss might have been the first to do this style. Homestead did a similar fan earlier with 6 blades and a lot of fancier attachments, but it also had the ventless and the black and colored version. I think Murray Feiss was the first to do the ventless fan with the spotlights, 4 or 5 blades offered in a combination of colors. That was called the High-Tech. That came out in 1986. Murray Feiss always coordinated their fan finishes with lighting finishes. So if they offered a chrome lighting design, you could get a chrome fan. If they offered a mauve lighting design, you could get a mauve fan. Hence the introduction of the fans that had the black and color, black and gray, black and chrome, etc. So, their main suppliers by this time were now Halsey and King of Fans. We mentioned that earlier. By 1987, they're still selling lots of footprint vent products. The High-Tech is now called the Contemporary. It still is offered with 4 blades, which is interesting. Interestingly enough, the Homestead model I just mentioned was also called the Contemporary. In 1988, they now have a wood housing fan. Remember I talked about the Kodep style that had either the ornate faceplates or the wood faceplates. They now offer that with the wood faceplates. It's also very similar to the Concord fan with the wood faceplates, but Concord's was 5-blade, Kodep's and Murray Feiss's was 4-blade. Kodep's, honestly, was a little cheaper. The wood quality was a little cheaper. That's 1988. They are now offering a vented 5-blade builder in a variety of colors. Again, this is similar to what Menards and other companies offered. It comes in a variety of colors, comes with spotlights, and these also had an optional wide close mount canopy. 1988 was most likely the last year for footprint vents. The Contemporary / High-Tech is still 4-blade, and its flagship version is black and chrome. So it's interesting that Menards and everybody else did those as 5-blade. Murray Feiss started them as 4-blade. 1989, the Murray Feiss hugger now has regular vents, and Macy's calls it the Canister. In 1990, the Spiegel-style Venus copy shows up. I call it Spiegel-style because I saw it in the Spiegel catalog as a kid. I think it was actually a Murray Feiss style. It's a Saturn copy, but the whole housing is slanty, and then it's got like a pointy light at the bottom. It's like if did I say Saturn? Venus copy. It's like if a Venus and a TriStar had a baby. That fan. In 1991, their Victorian copy shows up. In 1994, the wood housing thing is now 5-blade, and it looks very similar as what Concord offered. Interestingly enough, Concord also offered footprint vent fans, but other than buying from the same suppliers, they had no affiliation to Murray Feiss. In 1995, they are now advertising a 5-blade model that looks like the Emerson Premium. It was kind of the generic showroom fan of the 90s. If you wanted an upscale fan, instead of GE vents, it had those kind of larger builder vents like the Premium. In 1996, they now have a 5-blade fan for sale that looks similar to a Casablanca Panama with the Panama vents. In 1998, they are offering a rounded wood housing model with black accents. Again, this is a thing we see in various Menards and those type of places where they've got kind of a rounded wood housing. Usually it has 3 spotlights and brass accents. Murray Feiss had one of those show up in ads in 1998. In the year 2000 is the last mention of Murray Feiss ceiling fans in advertisements. Now, here's a little other trivia that's not date specific. Murray Feiss had a line of fans called AFRA, which stood for the American Fan Retail Association, that were sold directly to retailers for their own labels. So you may remember we talked in previous videos about how Craft Baed would sell directly to retailers for their own labels, and they didn't want it to be traced back to Craft Baed because they wanted to still sell their Craft Baed fans in showrooms for higher prices. Murray Feiss did the same thing. Theirs were called AFRA. Murray Feiss saw their direct competitors as Casablanca, Minka, and later Kichler. And despite the fact that they all had footprint vents, there is no connection between Murray Feiss, Concord, Litex, or Design House. They simply bought from the same suppliers. So, I think that covers the history of Murray Feiss. I was excited to learn a lot of this. There was so much in here that I did not know. I did not realize that they were responsible for so many ceiling fan firsts. I have been... really? I gotta do the whole thing over because I stumbled at the end? Guess that's how it is.